The diner's neon sign flickered, casting a red glow over the cracked pavement. Alex Carter, a man who'd faced war and won, stood frozen, his prosthetic leg aching under the weight of humiliation. Jamie's hand tightened around his, a silent vow that they'd face this together. It was supposed to be a quiet dinner in Willow Creek, a sleepy Virginia town where the Blue Ridge Mountains loomed like silent sentinels. Alex, 35, had chosen Maggie's Diner for its greasy burgers and nostalgia, a place to steal a moment with Jamie, 28, his partner of 3 years. They'd driven an hour from their Richmond apartment, chasing a night free from the city's noise. Alex wore his old army jacket, the one with faded patches from his tours in Afghanistan. Jamie, with his warm smile and soft-spoken charm, had picked a booth by the window, hoping to watch the sunset. But the manager, a wiry man named Carl with a sneer that cut deeper than shrapnel, had other plans. "We don't serve your kind here," he'd said, loud enough for the diner to fall silent. The words hit Alex like a bullet, sharper than the explosion that took his leg 5 years ago. Jamie's face flushed, his hand reaching for Alex's under the table. But Carl wasn't done. "You're upsetting my customers. Get out." The room spun. Alex's mind flashed to Kabul, to the chaos of war, to the comrades who'd carried him to safety when the IED went off. He'd survived that. He'd survived coming out to his conservative family, losing half of them in the process. But this public shaming in a diner he'd chosen for peace felt like a betrayal of everything he'd fought for. Jamie stood, his voice steady but trembling with rage. "You can't do this." He's a veteran. He served this country. Carl scoffed, crossing his arms. "Don't care. Rules are rules. Take it outside." The other patrons stared, some with pity, others with discomfort. A family in the corner whispered, their kids peeking over the booth. Alex felt the weight of every eye, every judgment. He wanted to disappear, to rewind the night, to unchoose this diner. But Jamie's grip anchored him, a lifeline in the storm. Then, from the back of the diner, chairs scraped against the linoleum. 4 men stood, their movements deliberate, their presence commanding. They weren't in uniform, but their broad shoulders and steely gazes screamed military. The tallest, a man with a salt and pepper beard, stepped forward. "You're kicking out a brother in arms." His voice was low, dangerous. Carl faltered, his bravado cracking. "This ain't your business." "It is now," said another, younger, with a scar across his cheek. The 4 men formed a line, their eyes locked on Alex. Then, as if on cue, they raised their right hands in a crisp salute. The diner went still, the air thick with something sacred. Alex's throat tightened. He hadn't been saluted since his discharge, since the hospital bed where he'd learned he'd never walk the same again. Jamie's eyes glistened, his hand squeezing Alex's harder. The gesture wasn't just for Alex, it was a rebuke to Carl, to the town, to every silent bystander. The leader of the 4, the bearded man, spoke again. "This man served. He bled for this country. You don't get to disrespect him." Carl muttered something about calling the cops, but his voice lacked conviction. The seals didn't budge. The diner's patrons shifted, some nodding, others looking away. Alex felt a spark reignite in his chest, a flicker of the pride he'd buried under years of pain. "We're leaving," Alex said, his voice steady for the first time that night. He wouldn't give Carl the satisfaction of a scene. Jamie nodded, grabbing their coats. As they walked out, the seals followed, forming a quiet escort. The cool night air hit Alex's face, and he realized he was trembling not from fear, but from the weight of what had just happened. Outside, the leader introduced himself as Mike, a retired Navy SEAL. The others Tom, Ryan, and Chris shook Alex's hand. Their grips firm but warm. "We saw your jacket," Mike said. "Knew you were one of us." Alex managed a weak smile, his heart still racing. Jamie stood close, his presence a steady comfort. "We've got a place nearby," Ryan said, his scar catching the streetlight. "A bar. Veteran-owned. You're welcome there." Alex nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. The SEALs didn't push, didn't pry. They just stood with him, their solidarity a shield against the night. As Alex and Jamie drove away, the diner's neon sign faded in the rearview mirror. But the memory of those salutes burned bright, a reminder that some battles were won not with fists, but with honor. The bar was called The Anchor, a low-slung building on the edge of Willow Creek, its sign weathered but proud. Inside, the air smelled of whiskey and cedar, and the walls were lined with photos of soldiers, sailors, and airmen and women who'd served, their stories etched in faded frames. Alex hesitated at the threshold, his prosthetic leg feeling heavier than usual. Jamie's hand brushed his, a quiet reminder they were safe here. Mike led them to a corner table, where the SEALs settled in with the ease of men who'd faced worse than a bigoted diner manager. Tom, the youngest, barely 30 with a quick grin, ordered a round of beers. "To brothers," he said, raising his glass. Alex clinked his bottle against theirs, the gesture grounding him. Jamie sipped his drink, his eyes scanning the room. Always protective, always watchful. The conversation started slow. Alex shared fragments of his story to tours in Afghanistan, the IED that changed everything, the long road to recovery. He didn't mention coming out. Not yet. The SEALs listened, their faces open, no judgment in their eyes. Mike, the leader, spoke of his own time in the Navy, of missions he couldn't detail but carried in the lines of his face. Ryan, the scarred one, talked about losing friends overseas. Chris, quiet but intense, nodded along, his silence a kind of respect. Jamie, usually reserved, surprised Alex by speaking up. "He doesn't talk about it much," he said, his voice soft but firm. But Alex saved 3 guys that day, pulled them out before the second blast. The SEALs leaned in, their respect deepening. Alex shifted, uncomfortable with the praise. He'd never seen himself as a hero, just a soldier doing his job. The bar's owner, a grizzled woman named Lena with a Marine Corps tattoo, stopped by their table. "Heard what happened at Maggie's," she said, her voice rough but kind. "Carl's always been a jackass. You're welcome here anytime." Alex nodded, grateful but still raw from the diner. Lena didn't push, just left a plate of wings and a promise of free refills. As the night wore on, the SEALs shared more stories, some funny, some heavy. Tom recounted a botched training mission that ended with him stuck in a swamp, earning laughs. Ryan spoke of a buddy who'd never made it home, his voice catching. Alex felt a kinship he hadn't known he'd missed, a bond forged in service, unbroken by time or injury. But the diner incident lingered. Jamie, sensing Alex's unease, leaned closer. "You okay?" he whispered. Alex shook his head, just slightly. "I thought I was past this," he admitted. "The stares, the hate. I thought I'd earned." He trailed off, unable to finish. Jamie's hand found his under the table, a silent promise. Mike caught the exchange. "You earn more than most," he said, his voice low but fierce. "Don't let some small-town prick make you forget that." The others nodded, their solidarity a lifeline. Alex wanted to believe them, but the wound was fresh, the memory of Carl's sneer too sharp. The bar's jukebox kicked on, playing an old Springsteen song. The SEALs started joking about bad 80s music, easing the tension. Jamie smiled, his first real smile of the night. And Alex felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this night could be salvaged. Maybe they could find something good in Willow Creek after all. But outside, trouble was brewing. Carl, humiliated by the SEALs' intervention, had called a few buddies locals who shared his narrow views. They'd parked across the street, watching the anchor, waiting for a chance to settle the score. Alex didn't know it yet, but the night was far from over. As closing time neared, Lena warned Mike about the men outside. "They're trouble," she said, her eyes narrowing. "You want me to call the sheriff?" Mike shook his head. "We'll handle it." He glanced at Alex and Jamie, his expression unreadable. "You two stick with us." Alex's heart sank. He'd seen that look before in war, in moments before chaos. He gripped Jamie's hand, his mind racing. He'd faced worse than a few angry locals. But Jamie hadn't. The thought of him getting hurt twisted Alex's gut. "Stay close," he told Jamie, his voice firm. The SEALs stood, their movements calm but deliberate. Mike led the way, his presence a quiet command. As they stepped into the cool night air, the streetlights cast long shadows. Carl and 3 others waited by a pickup truck, their postures aggressive, their eyes glinting with malice. "Well, look who it is," Carl sneered, stepping forward. The hero and his boyfriend. The word dripped with venom. But Alex stood tall, his prosthetic leg a badge of survival. Jamie moved closer, his jaw set. The SEALs flanked them, a wall of strength. "This doesn't have to get ugly," Mike said, his voice steady. "Walk away." But Carl wasn't listening. He took a step closer, and Alex braced for what came next. The street outside the anchor was quiet, save for the hum of crickets and the distant bark of a dog. Carl's buddies, 3 men with broad shoulders and clenched fists, spread out behind him, their faces shadowed under trucker caps. Alex felt the familiar weight of danger, the kind he'd known in war zones. But this was different, personal, raw, and rooted in hate. Jamie's hand trembled in his, but his voice was steady. "We don't want trouble," he said, addressing Carl directly. "Just let us go?" Carl laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the bar's brick walls. "You think you can waltz into my town, flaunt your lifestyle, and get away with it?" Alex's blood boiled. He'd faced insurgents, dodged bullets, survived shrapnel tearing through his body. But this being reduced to lifestyle, in a place he'd fought for cut deeper than any wound. He stepped forward, his prosthetic leg clicking softly on the pavement. "I earned my place here," he said, his voice low, controlled. "More than you ever will." Carl's smirk faltered, but one of his friends, a burly man with a beer gut, spat on the ground. "You're a disgrace to the uniform," he growled. The words hit Alex like a punch. But before he could respond, Mike stepped in, his presence a quiet storm. "You don't get to say that," he said, his eyes locked on the man. "Not to him. Not to any of us." The SEALs moved as one, positioning themselves between Alex, Jamie, and the group. Tom, the youngest, cracked his knuckles, a grin playing on his lips. Ryan's scar seemed to glow under the streetlight, his stance ready for a fight. Chris, silent as ever, watched Carl's every move, his intensity unnerving. Carl hesitated, sensing the shift. These weren't just Monty were trained, lethal, and fiercely loyal. But his pride wouldn't let him back down. "You think you scare me," he said, stepping closer to Mike. "This is my town." "Not tonight," Mike replied, his voice calm but edged with steel. "Tonight, It's ours. The air crackled with tension, the kind that precedes a storm. Alex's heart pounded. Not for himself, but for Jamie. He'd promised to keep him safe. To build a life where they could just be. This wasn't part of the plan. Then, a shout broke the silence. Enough. Lena, the bar owner, stood in the doorway, a shotgun resting casually on her shoulder. Her Marine Corps tattoo gleamed under the porch light. You boys want to start something. You'll answer to me first. Carl's group froze. The locals knew Lena knew she didn't bluff. One of them, a skinny guy with a nervous twitch, muttered, "Let's go, Carl." But Carl wasn't ready to fold. He pointed at Alex. "This ain't over," he said, his voice thick with venom. "Yes, it is," Jamie said, stepping forward. His voice shook, but his eyes burned. "You don't get to decide who belongs. Not here. Not anywhere." Alex's chest swelled with pride. Jamie, who'd always been the quieter one, the one who soothed Alex's nightmares, was standing tall, unafraid. The SEALs didn't flinch, their presence a silent promise. Carl's group backed off, muttering curses as they retreated to their truck. The engine roared to life, and they peeled out, leaving dust and anger in their wake. Alex exhaled, his body still braced for a fight that hadn't come. Lena lowered her shotgun, her expression softening. "You boys okay?" she asked, her eyes lingering on Alex. He nodded, though his heart was still racing. Jamie squeezed his hand, grounding him once more. Mike clapped Alex on the shoulder. "You handled that like a soldier," he said. "Both of you." Jamie blushed, and used to the praise. Tom grinned, breaking the tension. "Hell, I was hoping for a scrap. Been a while." The group laughed, the sound easing the night's weight. They returned to the Anchor, where Lena poured another round on the house. The jukebox played something softer now, a country ballad that felt like a balm. Alex and Jamie sat close, their shoulders touching, their hands entwined. As the night wound down, Mike pulled Alex aside. "What happened back there?" he said, his voice low. "It's not who you are. You're a warrior. Don't forget it." Alex nodded, his throat tight. He'd spent years rebuilding himself after the war, after the injury, after coming out. Tonight had shaken that foundation. But the SEALs' respect, Jamie's courage, and Lena's fierce support had reminded him of his worth. They left the Anchor just before midnight, the SEALs walking them to their car. The stars were bright above Willow Creek, the mountains a dark silhouette. Alex felt a shift inside him, a resolve hardening. He wasn't just a veteran, or a gay man, or a survivor. He was all of those things, and he was done apologizing for it. But as they drove back to Richmond, Jamie's hand in his, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that Carl's threat, "This ain't over," was more than just words. Trouble had a way of following, and he knew they'd have to face it again. The drive back to Richmond was quiet, the hum of the highway a steady backdrop to Alex's racing thoughts. Jamie stared out the window, his fingers still laced with Alex's, his silence heavy with unspoken worry. The diner incident, the confrontation outside the Anchor, it was too much for one night. Alex wanted to say something, to ease the tension, but his own heart was tangled in anger and pride. Back at their apartment, a modest one-bedroom with a view of the James River, they collapsed onto the couch. Jamie kicked off his shoes, his usual ritual, but his movements were slower, deliberate. "You sure you're okay?" he asked, his voice soft but probing. Alex leaned back, his prosthetic leg propped on an ottoman. "I don't know," he admitted. "I thought I was stronger than this, that I could handle people like Carl." Jamie's hand found his, a familiar anchor. You are strong, he said. Stronger than anyone I know. But you don't have to carry this alone. The words hit Alex hard. He'd spent years building walls, protecting himself from the world's judgment. Jamie had been the one to slip past those defenses. With his quiet kindness and unshakable loyalty, Alex pulled him close, their foreheads touching. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Jamie smiled, a flicker of his usual warmth. You're stuck with me, soldier. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, the city's lights casting shadows through the window. But morning brought new challenges. Alex woke to a buzzing phone text from Mike, the SEAL leader. Check the news. The message read, Carl's stirring shit. Alex grabbed his laptop, his stomach sinking. A local blog, Willow Creek Chronicle, had posted about the diner incident. But the story was twisted. Veteran causes seen at local diner. The headline screamed. The article painted Alex as the aggressor, claiming he and Jamie had disrupted Maggie's diner with inappropriate behavior. Carl was quoted, calling himself a victim of harassment. No mention of the SEALs, or Lena, or the truth. Jamie read over Alex's shoulder, his face paling. This is bullshit, he said, his voice sharp. They're lying. Alex nodded, his jaw tight. He'd seen propaganda before, in war zones. But this was personal. It wasn't just about him, it was about Jamie. Their life together. Their right to exist. He called Mike, who answered on the first ring. Saw the article, Mike said, his voice grim. Carl's got friends in low places. The Chronicle's editor is his cousin. Alex cursed under his breath. Small towns had long memories and tight networks. What do we do? He asked. We fight back, Mike said. Not with fists, with truth. Lena's already talking to folks, getting the real story out. And we've got your back. Alex felt a surge of gratitude. These men, strangers just hours ago, were ready to stand with him. It was more than he'd expected, more than he felt he deserved. Jamie, ever practical, was already on his phone, searching for ways to counter the article. We can post on X, he said. Tell our side. People need to know what really happened. Alex hesitated. Going public meant exposing themselves, their relationship, to scrutiny. But Jamie's eyes were fierce, determined. We're not hiding, he said. Not anymore. They spent the morning drafting a post, careful to keep it factual but raw. Alex described the diner. Carl's words, the SEAL salute. Jamie added a line about love, about fighting for the right to be seen. They tagged the anchor and Lena, hoping her reputation would lend weight. When they hit post, Alex felt a mix of fear and relief. The truth was out there, for better or worse. By afternoon, the post was gaining traction. Veterans groups, local activists, even strangers shared it. Their comments a mix of outrage and support. A few trolls spewed hate, but they were drowned out by voices calling for justice. Lena messaged them, saying she'd organized a gathering at the anchor that evening, a show of solidarity. Bring your army jacket, she wrote. Wear it proud. Alex and Jamie drove back to Willow Creek, the mountains looming larger now, a symbol of resilience. The anchor was packed when they arrived, the parking lot overflowing. Inside, veterans of all ages mingled with locals, their faces a mix of defiance and hope. Lena greeted them with a hug, her Marine Corps tattoo a badge of honor. This is for you, she said, gesturing to the crowd. Mike and the SEALs were there, along with Tom, Ryan, and Chris. They clapped Alex on the back, their smiles genuine. A woman in her 60s, wearing a Vietnam War pin, approached Alex. My son was gay, she said, her voice thick. He served, too. Thank you for standing up. Alex's eyes stung, but he managed a nod. The night felt like a victory, but Alex knew it was only the beginning. Carl's lies were spreading, and the truth would need to fight harder to win. The anchor buzzed with energy, the crowd a living testament to Alex and Jamie's fight. A makeshift stage stood at one end, where Lena had set up a microphone for anyone who wanted to speak. Veterans shared stories of service, of prejudice, of resilience. A young woman, a former Air Force mechanic, talked about hiding her identity during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. An older man, a Gulf War vet, spoke of losing friends to hate crimes. Each story wove into the next, a tapestry of pain and pride. Alex stood at the back, Jamie's hand in his, feeling both exposed and empowered. He wasn't used to being the center of anything. War had taught him to blend in, to survive. But tonight, he was visible, and it terrified him as much as it freed him. Jamie, sensing his unease, leaned close. You don't have to speak, he said. Just being here is enough. But Alex knew it wasn't. The Chronicle's article was still circulating, Carl's lies gaining ground. He'd seen the comments online, some supportive, others vicious. Faggot vet and disgrace to the flag cut deep. But the support, the veterans, the SEALs. Lena gave him strength. He stepped to the microphone, his prosthetic leg steady despite the tremor in his hands. I'm Alex Carter, he began, his voice rough but clear. I served 2 tours in Afghanistan. I lost my leg saving my squad. And last night, I was told I don't belong in this town because of who I love. The room went quiet, every eye on him. Jamie stood close, his presence a shield. I fought for this country, for freedom, for the right to sit in a damn diner with my partner and not be spit on. The crowd erupted in applause, some standing, others cheering. Mike and the SEALs nodded, their respect palpable. Alex continued, his voice gaining strength. I'm not here to fight Carl. I'm here to remind us all what we fought for. Freedom isn't just for some, it's for everyone. Jamie's eyes shone with pride as Alex stepped down. Strangers shook his hand, offered thanks, shared their own stories. A young trans teen, barely 16, hugged Alex tightly, whispering, You made me feel braver. Alex's heart clenched. This was bigger than him now. But the night wasn't without tension. Halfway through, Lena pulled Alex aside. Got a call from a friend at the sheriff's office, she said, her voice low. Carl's been talking to some rough types. They're planning something, maybe a protest. Maybe worse. Alex's stomach twisted. He glanced at Jamie, who was laughing with Tom over a shared beer. He couldn't let this touch him. Mike overheard, his jaw tightening. Let them come, he said. We've handled worse. But Alex wasn't so sure. War was one thing, clear enemies, clear objectives. This was Messier, a battle of hearts and minds in a town that felt split down the middle. As the gathering wound down, Alex and Jamie stepped outside for air. The night was cool, the stars sharp against the sky. Jamie leaned against the wall, his breath visible in the chill. You were amazing in there, he said. I've never been prouder. Alex smiled, but his mind was elsewhere. He felt the weight of Carl's threat, the eyes of a town watching, judging. Then, headlights cut through the dark. A truck pulled into the lot, followed by another. Carl stepped out, flanked by the same men from the night before, plus a few new faces. Their expressions were hard, their movements deliberate. Alex's instincts kicked, and he'd seen this before. In dusty streets half a world away. Trouble was here. Mike and the SEALs appeared behind them, their presence a quiet warning. Lena stood in the doorway, Her shotgun nowhere in sight, but her authority clear. "You're on private property," she called. "Leave." Carl ignored her. His eyes locked on Alex. "You think you can ruin my life?" He spat. "Your little stunts got people boycotting my diner." Alex stepped forward. His heart steady now. "You did that yourself," he said. "You chose hate." The crowd from the anchor spilled outside, forming a loose circle. Veterans, locals, allies, dozens of them. Their faces a mix of defiance and hope. Carl's group hesitated. Outnumbered. Outmatched. One of his buddies muttered something, tugging at his arm. Carl shook him off. But the fight was draining from him. Mike stepped beside Alex. His voice calm. "Go home, Carl. This isn't your fight anymore." Carl glared. But the crowd's unity was a wall he couldn't break. He turned, cursing, and his group followed, their trucks roaring into the night. The crowd cheered. But Alex felt no triumph. This wasn't a victory, just a pause. The war for acceptance was far from over. The next morning, Alex woke to a flood of notifications. Their ex-post had gone viral, shared by thousands, including a national veterans organization. Messages poured in support from across the country. Stories of others who'd faced similar hate. Offers to help. A lawyer from D.C. volunteered to sue Maggie's diner for discrimination. A journalist from the Washington Post wanted an interview. Alex stared at his phone, overwhelmed. This was bigger than Willow Creek now. Jamie, brewing coffee in their tiny kitchen, grinned. "You're famous," he teased. But his eyes held worry. Fame wasn't what they'd wanted, just a quiet life. Alex rubbed his temples, his prosthetic leg aching from the tension of the past 2 days. "What do we do with this?" he asked. "We keep going," Jamie said, sliding a mug across the counter. "People are listening. That means something." Alex nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. Every step forward seemed to invite more pushback. Carl's face, twisted with rage, lingered in his mind. They returned to Willow Creek that afternoon, invited by Lena for a community meeting at the Anchor. The bar was packed again, but the mood was different, less celebratory, more determined. Veterans, locals, even a few reporters filled the room. Mike and the SEALs were there, their presence a steady anchor. Lena took the stage, her voice cutting through the chatter. "We're here to talk about what happened," she said, "and what we do next." She gestured to Alex and Jamie, who sat near the front. "These men deserve better. Our town deserves better." Nods rippled through the crowd. A woman in her 50s, a teacher, stood. "I'm ashamed of what Carl did," she said. "This isn't who we are." But not everyone agreed. A man in a flannel shirt, his face weathered, spoke up. "I don't hate nobody," he said, "but folks got a right to run their business how they see fit." Murmurs followed, some in support, others in dissent. Alex felt the room split. The fault lines of a small town laid bare. Jamie squeezed his hand, a silent signal. Alex stood, his heart pounding, but his resolve firm. "I didn't come here to start a war," he said. "I just wanted a burger with my partner. But if standing up for who I am means fighting, then I'll fight. Not for me, for everyone who's been told they don't belong." The room erupted in applause. But the man in flannel shook his head, leaving with a few others. Alex watched them go, his stomach tight. Change wasn't easy, not in a place like this. But the support, the veterans, the SEALs, the teacher gave him hope. After the meeting, the journalist from the Post approached. Her name was Sarah, mid-40s, with sharp eyes and a notepad. "Your story's resonating," she said. "Can I ask you a few questions?" Alex hesitated, but Jamie nodded encouragingly. They sat with Sarah. Sharing the truth, the diner. The SEAL salute. The confrontation outside the anchor. Sarah listened, her pen moving fast. This could change things, she said. Not just here, but everywhere. As they left, Mike pulled them aside. We're hearing rumors, he said, his voice low. Carl's not done. He's got friends with local council, even some cops. Be careful. Alex's jaw tightened. He'd faced enemies before, but this felt different, insidious, personal. That night, back in Richmond, Alex couldn't sleep. He sat on the balcony, staring at the river, his mind racing. Jamie joined him, wrapping a blanket around them both. What's on your mind? He asked. Everything, Alex admitted. Carl. The article. This movement. What if it's too much? Jamie's hand found his, steady as ever. Then we face it together, he said, like always. The next day, Sarah's article hit the web. A veteran stand against hate in small-town America was the headline, with a photo of Alex and Jamie outside the anchor, the SEALs behind them. The story was raw, honest, and unflinching. It detailed Carl's actions, the SEAL salute, Lena's defiance. By evening, it was trending, with calls for a boycott of Maggie's diner and demands for accountability. But the backlash came fast. Carl posted a video on X, claiming he was the victim, accusing Alex of stirring up trouble. His supporters rallied, flooding the internet with hate. Alex's phone buzzed with threats, some vague, others explicit. Jamie's face paled as he read them, but he didn't waver. We're not backing down, he said. Alex nodded, his resolve hardening. They'd started something bigger than themselves, a fight for dignity, for love, for the right to exist. And they weren't alone. The threats kept coming, a steady drip of venom in Alex's inbox. You'll regret this. One read. Leave town or else, said another. He tried to shield Jamie from the worst, but Jamie insisted on reading every one. We're in this together, he said, his voice firm despite the fear in his eyes. Alex admired his courage, but it didn't ease the guilt. This fight was his fault. He thought his choice to stand up, to speak out. Back in Willow Creek, the town was divided. Maggie's diner saw fewer customers, its parking lot half empty. But Carl doubled down. He hung a sign in the window. We reserve the right to refuse service. Locals whispered about it, some in support, others in disgust. The anchor, meanwhile, was thriving, its tables packed with supporters. Lena had turned it into a hub for the cause, hosting veterans groups and activists planning a rally. Alex and Jamie returned for the rally, a Saturday event organized by Lena and a local LGBTQ group. The town square was alive with color rainbow flags, veteran banners, signs reading "Love wins" and "Honor all who serve." Hundreds showed up, more than Alex had expected. The SEALs were there, Mike leading a group of veterans in a quiet march. Sarah, the journalist, snapped photos, her article having drawn national attention. Alex felt exposed, standing on a makeshift stage with Jamie. Lena introduced them, her voice booming. These men remind us what courage looks like, she said. They're not just fighting for themselves, they're fighting for us all. The crowd cheered, but Alex spotted a cluster of counter-protesters across the square. Carl was among them, his face twisted with rage, holding a sign, "Protect our values." The rally was peaceful, with speeches from veterans, activists, and even the mayor, who'd been pressured to attend. But tension simmered. Alex noticed Carl's group growing, their signs more aggressive. Keep Willow Creek traditional, one read. A few shouted slurs, their voices drowned out by the crowd but sharp enough to sting. As Jamie spoke, his voice clear and passionate, Alex's heart swelled. "We're not here to change your town," Jamie said. "We're here to make it better for everyone." The applause was deafening, but Alex's eyes stayed on Carl. Something about his posture, the way his group huddled, set off alarms. After the rally, as the crowd dispersed, trouble struck. A rock sailed through the air, narrowly missing Jamie. Shouts erupted, and Carl's group surged forward, emboldened by numbers. The SEALs moved fast, forming a barrier around Alex and Jamie. Mike's voice was calm but lethal. "Back off," he said, his eyes locked on Carl. Lena appeared with a megaphone, her Marine Corps grit on full display. "This is our town, too," she bellowed. "You want to fight? You'll lose." The crowd rallied behind her, their unity a wall. Carl's group hesitated, then retreated, their bravado crumbling under the weight of the community's resolve. But the rock had shaken Alex. He pulled Jamie close, checking him for injuries. "I'm fine," Jamie said, but his hands trembled. Alex's anger flared not at Carl, but at himself. He dragged Jamie into this, exposed him to danger. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Don't," Jamie said, his eyes fierce. "This isn't on you. It's on them." He kissed Alex, right there in the square, a defiant act of love. The crowd cheered, and Alex felt a tear slip down his cheek. For the first time, he didn't care who saw. That night, back at the Anchor, the mood was bittersweet. The rally had been a success, but the rock, the threats, the counter-protesters' were reminders of how far they still had to go. Sarah joined them, her notebook full. "You're changing the narrative," she said. "This story's going national. TV next." Alex wasn't sure he wanted that. The spotlight felt heavy, the threats heavier. But Jamie's hand in his, the SEAL's nods, Lena's fierce grin, they grounded him. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for the kid who'd hugged him, for the veterans who'd shared their stories, for every person who'd ever been told they didn't belong. As they left, Mike pulled Alex aside. "You've got a fire in you," he said. "Don't let it go out." Alex nodded, his resolve hardening. The fight wasn't over, but he was ready for the next round. The national spotlight hit hard. By Monday, Alex and Jamie's story was on morning shows, their faces plastered across screens from New York to L.A. Veteran hero stands against hate. One headline read. Another called Carl the face of small-town bigotry. Maggie's Diner was boycotted nationwide, its Yelp page flooded with one-star reviews. Carl, cornered, gave interviews doubling down, claiming he was defending traditional values. Each word he spoke dug his grave deeper. Alex and Jamie stayed in Richmond, avoiding the chaos. Their apartment became a fortress, their phones off to dodge reporters and threats. But the world wouldn't let them hide. A producer from a major network invited them to New York for a live interview. Jamie was hesitant, his eyes tired. "Do we have to?" he asked, curled up on their couch. Alex, staring at the river outside, felt the weight of it all. "No," he said. "But if we don't, who will?" Jamie nodded, his resolve returning. They booked the tickets, their first trip together outside Virginia. The SEALs sent a group text, "Proud of you. Stay sharp." Lena mailed them a Marine Corps patch with a note, "Wear it for luck." In New York, the studio was a whirlwind, bright lights, hurried assistants, a host with a practiced smile. Alex wore his army jacket, Jamie beside him in a simple sweater, their hands clasped off camera. The host, a woman named Claire, asked about the diner, the SEALs, the rally. Alex spoke from the heart, his voice steady despite the cameras. I didn't fight for this country to be told I don't belong, he said. None of us did. Jamie's turn came, and he surprised Alex with his eloquence. Love isn't a threat, he said. Hate is. We're just asking for the same respect anyone else gets. The audience applauded, some in tears. Alex squeezed his hand, pride swelling in his chest. The interview aired that night, trending within hours. Support poured in letters, donations to veterans' charities, even a call from a senator promising to push for stronger anti-discrimination laws. But the hate came, too. Threats filled their inbox, some targeting Jamie specifically. Alex's nightmares returned, visions of war mixing with new fears losing Jamie, failing the cause. Back in Willow Creek, the tide was turning. Carl's diner closed, its windows boarded up. The Chronicle issued a retraction, its editor replaced. Lena's anchor became the town's heart, a place where veterans and allies gathered. The SEALs stayed close, checking in daily. Mike sent Alex a photo of a new sign outside the anchor. All are welcome. But the fight wasn't over. Carl, humiliated, filed a lawsuit against Alex and Jamie, claiming defamation. The lawyer from D.C. took their case pro bono, confident they'd win. He's got nothing, she said. You've got the truth. Still, the legal battle loomed. A reminder that hate didn't vanish, it just changed shape. One evening, back in Richmond, Alex and Jamie sat on their balcony, the river reflecting the city's lights. The weight of the past weeks pressed down, but so did the hope. They'd sparked a movement, given voice to thousands. Alex turned to Jamie, his voice soft. I never wanted this to be our life, he said. Fighting. Always fighting. Jamie smiled, his eyes warm. Maybe it's not about the fight, he said. Maybe it's about what we're building. A world where we don't have to hide. He leaned in, kissing Alex gently, a promise sealed under the stars. The next day, they got a call from Lena. Willow Creek was hosting a pride event, the first in its history, and they wanted Alex and Jamie to lead it. You started this, Lena said. Come finish it. They agreed, packing their bags with a mix of nerves and excitement. The pride event was small but vibrant, the town square alive with color and music. Veterans marched alongside families, kids waving rainbow flags. The SEALs were there, saluting Alex and Jamie as they took the stage. Alex looked out at the crowd, his heart full. This is what we fought for, he said, his voice carrying not just freedom, but love. For all of us. As the crowd cheered, Jamie slipped his hand into Alex's. Their fingers entwined. The mountains stood watch, the stars above bright. They'd faced hate and won out with fists, but with courage, with love, with a community that refused to back down. The fight would go on, but for now, they stood tall, together, unbreakable.